This is the Ideation Project, Season 1, Track 8. God bless Yoda, a little green fountain of wisdom, the ultimate Jedi Master on whom we depend, he who typically keeps the conjugated verb at the end. He's the sage that is an inspiration to kids of any age. We easily identify Yoda as the embodiment of accumulated knowledge. On this 40th anniversary of the Star Wars franchise, no one dismisses Yoda. But then, Yoda is also old, like really old, like around 900 years old. And yet we understand why he's not a societal burden. Rather, he's the greatest asset to the Jedis, the true leader of the Resistance. So why don't we afford our elders today in the West the deference we give him? Simply, why don't we treat senior people better? Is it possible to change the way we see aging? Is it really so bold to believe it's a good thing to be old? When you're young, you want to be older for a while, but then it turns. When you're old, you pine for more youthful days, or at least you're expected to. There is little value in growing mature these days. Advanced age has become distinctly negative. Today in the West, seniors are often seen as a drain on resources. In a consumer-driven society, once you have little left to contribute to the economic ride, you're increasingly cast aside. Think of the way older people are sometimes mocked as annoying or intrusive, their interventions seen as out of touch and out of date. Think of the way we value anything that suggests youth, that is, before it's too late. Think of this year at the Academy Awards and that Best Picture blunder, and how it was at first viewed by many through the prism of ageism. 79-year-old Warren Beatty looked befuddled. It was assumed he was having a so-called senior moment, rather than reacting with understandable pause about being given the wrong envelope. The fault was with the Price Waterhouse team, but not before Warren became an internet meme. Think of this year's Grammys, with the legendary Barry Gibb mostly sitting out a Bee Gees tribute, watching other artists do feeble versions of his songs because he was considered too irrelevant to a younger TV audience to perform himself. Oh, we revere seniority and spiritual leaders like the Dalai Lama or the Pope, but not when it comes to the person ahead of us in the supermarket aisle or the local artist deemed over the hill. We repeatedly judge and stereotype the uselessness of age. Think of how John McCain was ridiculed as too old in the election 9 years ago, and the focus on Hillary Clinton's age this past year. Only now are folks realizing the value in turning to a leader who has a collected resume of ups and downs, highs and lows, someone who, in the current climate, can bring some perspective. Of course, simply being old doesn't mean you've got all that. But there's a better chance at wisdom if you've had a number of kicks at the can. And in truth, elders can appeal to youth. Think of that Yoda with a New York accent named Bernie Sanders, dismissed by media, no corporate funding, unafraid to embrace socialism, and an old guy who may be far and away the most popular leader among younger people today. It was millennials who most wanted to give him the next turn. It was they who were most feeling the burn. So how could that be? How was it that a 75-year-old connected and became so appealing? Could it have to do with the fact that his age made his best qualities more revealing? A lifetime spent building a legacy of authenticity and consistency made him that much more attractive. The lack of deference to seniors wasn't always so. In ancient societies and the Old Testament, the elders were viewed as the wise adults who would be responsible for decision-making and leadership. In First Nation, Métis, and Inuit communities, elders are teachers and role models. They play an essential role in imparting knowledge and culture to the broader group, part of a legacy of treating senior society members with the utmost value. In fact, there are culturally embedded rituals and traditions of respect for older people in much of the East, the same societies in Asia, the Middle East, or Africa that are often derided as backward. It is in the advanced West that the pattern of dismissing the elderly amongst us often plays out the worst. Do Western grandparents or senior neighbors not deserve the same deference as elsewhere? And this brings us back to Yoda. If he was not a superstar of blockbuster films but the bloke living in a bungalow down the street, would we treat him with the same value? Or would we try to push him into a nursing home and keep him off the roads? Would we call him out of touch and wonder why he isn't tweeting more? Would we bypass him for a BuzzFeed list and a young celebrity we think we actually adore? There is nothing that can replace the wisdom of a life lived. There is no experience that is a substitute for the education that comes from an elder sharing stories of our past. We don't know where we're going unless we know where we've come from. Are we perhaps misled in our fear of aging? Much to learn you still have, my old Padawan. This is just the beginning.